I'm going to probably post this a couple of times because, well, we'll wait. We can wait a couple minutes.
All right.
So is everybody
You rock
excited
this
for
out.
day
I'm gonna go.
4?
I'll be right back. You do
Okay.
this.
All
You
right.
got this. I'll be right back.
Okay. I've got it. I'll get the nervous talkies. Perfect. Yes. Full frame overkill. It's bingo day. Boop, boop. Good morning, Janelle. I love that video of those two chihuahuas. I have a
Rosalind's going to
dachshund,
be
which is very chihuahua adjacent as far as temperament. Hi, Gilly. Yeah, bingo. This is
Rosalind's going to be
fun
leaning up
bingo.
ready.
This is different than regular bingo. It's the same in the fact that you fill out a bingo card, but it's different and it's not the first one who gets bingo. We let everybody try until the end, and then we draw a name. So it's more of a raffle and bingo mixed together. So, and you have to be present to win. Or you don't win. That is how we get you to stay till the end of class.
Right. If you haven't registered for the class, do it. Get the
Yeah.
certificate.
And if you're joining us via stream, the bingo card's going to be over in Discord. So I'll go ahead and get that posted. So here is how you make your bingo card. You click on that and you generate a bingo card. The words are already there. You can scramble them around, whatever. But that is how you generate your bingo card. Rita is the center square, which is always free. So you need to get 5 in a row, vertically, horizontally, or diagonally. And once you get 5 in a row, screenshot your bingo card and send me a private message. Sometimes Discord makes you like friend me first before it accepts direct messages, but sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what setting I've got wrong. Maybe I'll get with Daryl at some point in my life to figure that out. But but yeah, so today's bingo, we will be starting when class starts and not before. So if I say any words, and it can be it doesn't have to be exact. We're not super strict. Like I said, everybody gets a chance that's here. And the prize is actually a 1-year subscription to our entire course catalog for on demand and 1-year access to Cyber Range. So I will be accepting bingo cards once we get going with class. And hopefully John will be back in a couple minutes. But if anybody has any bingo questions, feel free to, yes, go ahead. This is my display name, please.
Yes, Clayton.
Oh,
What do you mean? Is that included in the pay what you can? Yes, Clayton, that's what you do. You mark it or whatever, however you're going to mark up your card. And then you'll send it to me via direct message for, to see who wins. Like a drinking game, kind of. But you don't drink, you get drunk on education.
you can drink. I mean,
Yeah, if you really want to.
if that's your thing, we don't judge.
Yeah,
I mean, we do.
we don't drink, but go ahead.
But if
Good
you
on
want to, get on with yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
we need
Okay, so
good stories. And,
5 o'clock somewhere.
it's
Yeah.
5 o'clock a.m. somewhere.
yeah.
Well, it's 6 a.m.
And
now.
you can also drink delicious low sodium V8. That's
Yes.
when I'm teaching my pay what you can classes.
We need to make sure that we go through and cut
Yeah.
these videos and start sending them to V8.
If you did the pay what you can is 1 year included. I don't understand. I mean,
Oh, I know what you're saying. So the payment tiers. So if they paid like the 150, they get 1 year access to this class for on demand. So yes, the 1 year would be for all of the classes. So this one, if you paid the 150, you would get this one obviously as well. You know how the new payment tiers are, John, with the different giveaways and stuff.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and post one more time the bingo card generator. Again, you just click generate card. You don't make up your own words. And Rita is the center square and is always free because
There
that's
you
what
go.
John's mom wanted. So, of course, Rita's going to be free. So, when you hear John say any of the words, mark them down however you are going to mark it. Then send me the 5 in a row via DM. You will be entered to win for the drawing at the end of class, and you must be present to win. So, you ready to get going,
I am.
Mr. Strand? Okay. All right. Well, it's pretty easy. You can also message me or tag me in the Discord channel if you have any questions. But
Good.
if not, we'll see you at the end of class.
All right, let's do this. Thank you so much. Appreciate it, Daryl, Brian, and Megan. Let's get rolling. All right, so we're starting out with me doing a walkthrough of the lab that we closed out with yesterday. So we want to look at what is the impact from the attack surface on a computer system if the firewall is enabled on this computer system. So the first thing that we do is we get our IP address, which is fine. We've got the Kali system right here. And we are going to start up Nmap, and we're going to do a port scan to show you what that looks like. Nmap, and we put in my IP address is 10.10.96.215. Your IP address may be different, and it's going to scan the top 1,000 ports, and then it's going to come back and it's going to tell us what ports it actually sees open on this computer system. And right now it only sees port 3389, Microsoft WDT server. That is remote desktop. So what we're going to do is we're now going to turn off that firewall, netsh, ADV firewall, set all profiles state off. All right. And that's going to turn off the firewall. And then we're going to look at what those ports look like whenever we have that firewall is not stopping. And this really is indicative of the way your environment looks whenever any of the systems are on Active Directory, because it basically is set up in most organizations in such a way that any of the systems can talk to each other. Right? There's no firewall. It's less secure than you would have at a Starbucks. Now we have a couple of additional ports, or 3 additional ports open, 4 actually. We have remote procedure call, NetBIOS SSN, and Microsoft Data Services. The question we're answering now in this lab is the so what question. Let's say that those ports are open to all of the systems internally inside of your environment. What does that mean whenever we're trying to attack that system? Like, what does it mean? So I'm going to disable my AV just to make sure that it's off. Once again, the goal of this isn't bypassing AV, but the goal of this is to show you that if I'm on an Active Directory environment, I can literally gain access to thousands of computer systems very, very quickly just by moving laterally, right? So waiting on this, come on back. Let's paste that in. Got to copy it. Copy, paste, disable the AV. It's going to come back in a second. There we go. It's now off. And then I've already got the firewall off. I already did that. I'm going to set the administrator password to be password 1234. And then I've got my IP address already. And we're going to do a different exploit today. We're not going to be mounting a share. I'm going to show you that if I can use something like link local multicast name resolution, if I can use something like malicious links, if I can do ARP cache poisoning, a number of different things, NTLM relay X, how I can get those password hashes. I can exploit one system, and there's a lot of ways to get password hashes. But what we're going to do is we're now going to exploit that Windows computer system. We're going to start up MSF console right here with the quiet flag. And we're going to show if I have these Microsoft ports open, how can I access that remote computer system via these particular ports? Now, while this is starting up, let's go ahead and let's have a little bit of a story time on Microsoft Remote Procedure Call and why Microsoft did it. All right. So a long time ago in a galaxy far, far, far away, whenever Bill Gates and the team was working on Microsoft, they had this vision for how that operating system functioned. And basically, you were going to be running your computer where your computer was the network and the network was the computer. So imagine all of your Windows workstations doing distributed workload amongst all of the different computers. So there was a whole bunch of what we call endpoints that you can query to do processing on your computer that were exposed to the entire network. Right? We could use remote procedure call from one workstation to another workstation. And kind of the original idea from what I've heard was if I was working on something that required more data processing, it could actually have some of that data processing done on another computer system on the network that maybe didn't have as many CPU cycles being consumed. And this sounds like a good idea until you actually put the cocaine down and start thinking about it. The problem with this is it opened up internals of Microsoft systems to the network, right? Opened up the internals because the computer was the network was the computer, and the computers were going to share and distribute loads. And because of that, it opened up all kinds of vulnerabilities. If you're looking at like some of the old school vulnerabilities for SASR 03026, 08067, Net API, a remote procedure call, all of these were taking advantage of different remote procedure calls that were exposed and open to the network. And that was very problematic from an exploit perspective on Windows computers. Because if you look in the early 2000s, 2001, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and so on, there were remotely exploitable vulnerabilities that kept popping up again and again and again in these environments using Windows. That was the problem. But the reasoning was they wanted to make sure that these things were exposed to the network as a whole. So what we're going to do is we're going to take advantage of that because I can get credentials from a system and I can reuse those credentials on that system. And in many situations, I don't even need to know what the IP address is. So we're going to be using PS exec. Right, we're going to be using PS exec for this particular exploit. And this is a tool that is created by Microsoft for remote like execution. So I'm going to set the R host to be my Windows IP address, 10.10.96.215. We have that. Then we're going to set the L host to be ETH0. So that way I don't have to get the IP address every time. Set the SMB user to be administrator, because that's the user ID. And then we're going to set the password to password1234 and then exploit. Now, because I have that password, I can authenticate. And once we've authenticated, we're going to upload the payload to the system. We're going to get Meterpreter running. It's going to create the service. It's going to reach back, grab our malware, execute the malware, and then it's going to pop us down a session with Meterpreter here in just a couple of seconds. Hopefully, maybe. Maybe I've got to run it a couple of times. Let's try exploiting it again. There we go. I just had to do it a couple of times. All right, so I'm in. I've got my Meterpreter session. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. There's just nothing wrong with this. Now, this works because I'm able to communicate to port 445 on the Windows computer system. So anytime anyone is in this environment, if they got a password, they can use that password. Now, let's do this. Let's say that you have really super strong passwords. All right. So if you look, let me do a couple of things. So let's say I've got a password that's nay uncrackable. So I'm going to do password 1234. I'm going to make it really long. We have a really super long password. That password would never be able to be cracked. There's no way you're going to brute force that password under any stretch of the imagination. It's a strong password. Now, if I run hash dump, you can see that the administrator's password has changed. The NT password began with D4A1. Now it begins with C11D88, whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to show you how if an attacker can simply get that password hash, right? So we can do that. I can exit Meterpreter, and then I can set the SMB pass to not be the password, because there's no way I'm going to crack that password. It's just not possible. But once again, on Windows systems, if I get the password hashes, either by A, exploiting another computer system, B, utilizing some type of ARP cache poisoning on the inside of the network to reroute the traffic through my system, or link local multicast name resolution, WPAD, NetBIOS name services. There's so many different ways to do this. Somehow I get that pass, or I get that hash, right? If I get that password hash, I do not have to crack it. So now I can re-exploit that computer system with no password, just the hash, an absolutely uncrackable password hash right there, and I can still gain access to that computer, right? So the goal of this lab is to demonstrate that danger, right? So you can totally have really strong passwords and an attacker can still just smoke it out, right? So what do we do? How do we limit this overall exposure in our environment? So if I exit out, close my Meterpreter session, and now I take that firewall, and now I do set all profiles state on, the whole game changes. The whole game changes, because even if the attacker has a password or they have a password hash, if I try to exploit this computer system, those particular ports are blocked to me. See, it's trying to connect on port 445. It hit that wall. Even though I have an existing credential set, I'm dead in the water at that particular point. Now, this is easy to implement in your environment. I'm going to take a couple of seconds and I am going to destroy my VMs because I want to save those sweet, sweet credits. And it really articulates how something as simple as having your firewall enabled shuts down lateral movement. Now, Metasploit isn't the only tool that has lateral movement capability, right? If we're looking at other tools, there's things like Death Star, there's things like Bloodhound that takes advantage of these things. NTLM Relay X is another one. So we're basically shutting down entire categories of lateral movement in the MITRE framework. Resonating asked a question, is it possible to replicate this behavior locally with normal user rights with onboard software? Yes. So believe it or not, Resonating, it's easier, right? So if I exploit a computer system, the way I can do that is the command like net use. So let me type it in. So I don't have my system up. Let's go here to chat. No, that's not what we want. Let's go to Discord. Here we go. So I can net use star, and then I can do // IPADDR /C$. And if I run that command, Active Directory automatically passes my token to that remote computer system. I don't need to use any exploits to gain access to do that as well. When you substitute a hash for the password, shouldn't the hash get hashed itself? No, it doesn't. If I was using that in built-in Windows utilities, it would. If you are doing it with a hacking tool, you would need a modified version of PSExec. You would need you could use PSExec in Metasploit, which automatically accepts it. Or you could use a modified version of Samba that allows you to remotely access the system from a Windows computer system. But I don't need to do it, because if I break into someone's system, I don't need to know their password to move laterally in that situation. So that's how you would do it in that scenario. So, all right. Does net use elevate your normal user? It does not, actually. So you're still going to stay as a normal user. So let me explain how Bloodhound, and I'll give you one example of how Bloodhound works. But one of the ways that Bloodhound works is it takes your existing user. Yep, it does. But I can map that C drive to any computer system. All right. So imagine Resonating. Don't look at it as one computer to another. I want you to think of me doing this, but to thousands of computer systems. All right. So that's what Bloodhound does. All right. So this is not something that you should look at from the perspective of just one computer system, but I want you to look at it in massive parallelism. There you go. All right, so now resonating. Imagine I have a user account. It's a standard user account. It's nothing special. I run Bloodhound, and Bloodhound goes and logs on to, let's say, 10,000 computer systems. And in every computer, it goes through and it checks to see what its permissions are on that computer. So it goes to your computer, I'm a standard user. Goes to, let's say, Roswell's computer, it's just a standard user. It goes to Daryl's computer, standard user. It does this again. Computer 1, standard user. 2, standard user. 3, standard user. 100 standard user, 105 standard user, 106 standard user. It's trying all of these systems and it's logging in again and again and again as a standard user, but it doesn't give up. It just keeps going. It's checking standard user, standard user, standard user, standard user. And then it hits a computer system and it's local administrator. Why would it be a local administrator? It's very, very common in many environments for people to have a computer that requires the users that are using something attached to that computer to be a local administrator. Let's say hypothetically it's accounting. And accounting has a flatbed scanner that for no good reason requires you to be a local admin. Does that make sense? Resonating? So for that computer, for whatever reason, you have to be a local administrator for a peripheral device for scanning checks. So instead of just adding in the specific domain users to the local administrator group that have to use that system, Help Desk gets lazy and they add domain users to the local administrators group. All right. They use that domain users group and they just add it to local administrators. Because what's the harm? It's just 3 people in accounting. They may have other people that need to log in to use the flatbed scanner in their absence. Just add the domain users to local administrator. So now I've gone through 10,000 computers and I found one that they added domain users to the local administrators group. Once I'm on that computer, then I can see all of the tokens in LSAS. And now I can see there's like a backup service or an Active Directory, some type of admin service. Now I can impersonate that token. So when we're talking about this lateral movement I just demonstrated with net use star // IP address $, that's true. That's on one computer, but tools like Bloodhound can do that type of check across thousands of computer systems. And once you find that one computer that you're a local administrator, you can use Mimikat style techniques to exfiltrate the hashes out of memory and impersonate domain level systems on that as well. Does that make sense? Does that kind of answer the question? Roswell asked, where does that meet in the MITRE framework? Let's go MITRE. Here we go. This one right here. We have multiple techniques that it's using because what I just described is one thing that Bloodhound does. Bloodhound does multiple things to do this. So, all right. So does that answer your question? All right. Okay, awesome. All right. So let's move on to internet allow listing. All right. So internet allow listing is really focusing on this initial access, right? And this gets to how is it attackers can use spear phishing to gain access to servers and services on your environment? Users, right? We always are targeting users. We try to get them to go to websites, two-factor authentication, interception with Evil Jinx, or any of these different tools. We're trying to do that, but we're trying to trick a user to go someplace they shouldn't. And I've been using this for years, but the internet is big, like really big. You wouldn't believe how vastly, mind-bogglingly huge it is. And most of it's worthless. And many of your users will not stop until they've clicked and visited every single site. So how exactly in the hell do we stop that from happening? So one of the things that we do on the offensive side, right, is we will acquire domains that have already been purchased and are now for sale. So somebody bought a domain, let's say 5 years ago, they did nothing with it, comes up for sale, but it's been categorized. This is a technique that was first publicly disclosed I know a bunch of companies have been doing this for a while, but SpecterOps were the first ones I think that blew it way huge with this post a number of years ago. A tool that we wrote is one called Domain Gain. And what Domain Gain does is it basically gets a list of a bunch of expired domains that are for sale, sorts them by URL, SimWeb score, ACR score, and that SimWeb score is the how dangerous is this domain? And a lot of these domains that come up for sale have a long history of being a religious website, parks and recreation website, financial website. But for whatever reason, that org let it expire, and then we can take over that domain, and then we can get the price. So here's what it looks like when we run this. We got Warrant Navi. This is a brokerage trading site. It's already pre-categorized, and it's $7.65. Oregon City Parks, government legal. It's $10.79. Entertainment, Reich, A32, technology, internet, and so on. We can buy these domains and we can use them in our malicious attacks on that as well. A good score is so that you're not on any deny list because of a low score. Absolutely. That's what we're trying to focus on. So let's talk about this a little bit. How many legitimate sites do your users actually go to, though? Like, seriously. Do they, on average, do they go to 200, 500, 1,000 websites, 2,000? I think that that's a valid question that we can ask when we're looking at these things. I think we should, right? But let's say we allow them, like even down to like Facebook and things like that, but we remove ads. And by the way, you should really remove ads. Ads are just bad. They're so bad. The thing that sucks about removing ads is when people remove ads or they block ads, a whole bunch of websites stop working. For a while, if you went to like Huffington Post, Drudge Report, even like Fox News, CNN, whatever, if you're running an ad blocker, some of these sites pop up and they say, "Ooh, yeah, you're running an ad blocker. You can't come to this website." And I'll talk more about that here in just a little bit. But if we allow listed these sites and we did it this way, our exposure would be far less. And the reason why is everybody on the internet is trying to focus on specific categories and deny listing them, right? So if we try to filter, a lot of people would filter, like, let's say, adware or alcohol, or they would try to filter compromised, which they absolutely should be doing, right? Maybe porn, hate speech, nudity, those types of things, right? Social media, we should probably blow those away. I'm just joking. Many organizations don't, but I'm going to come back to that. But the big thing on this list that I think we need to block is the uncategorized sites. So I got it right here, uncategorized or categorization error. So you can actually implement allow listing, and you can do it in such a way that it's really easy to basically take anything that's not categorized and don't allow your users to go there. Yep, the slides are all in the resources. All right, how does that work? Well, here's the deal. We talked about domains. This is what pen testing companies do. This is just the way we roll, right? We're going through and we're buying these things. And the attackers, they have this weird thing on the internet where you can buy a domain and you have 2 weeks to return it for a full refund. It's just kind of the way things work on the internet. So a lot of attackers spool up brand new domains that are uncategorized, and they use those categorized for ops for like 2 weeks, and then they get a full refund on that domain. They do it over and over and over and over again. So that domain is completely uncategorized. If you have a domain that your users have never seen, your firewall has never seen it, your egress web proxy has never seen it, do you want your users going to that website? No. So what you can do is filter the uncategorized, right? We can filter the uncategorized section, and then it already does this really cool sort of filtering on unknown brand new sites, right? So you could try to allow list every single site. That's dumb. Don't do that, right? Don't sit down with the Star Chamber and a bunch of people getting together and they're like, Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. Today we are going to discuss whether or not we're going to allow users to go to facebook.com. We're not going to do that, even though I would love to see it like that, like a big, like British parliament where people are ripping on each other and they're throwing things at each other. I would dig that. That's not how things work, much to my chagrin. But that's not how we should do this. We should not do this again and again and again for each site. We can just go back to the uncategorized list and just filter it. Because once again, if Cisco's never seen it, Fortinet's never seen it, we don't want our users to go to something that these big companies have never seen before. So with malware and allow listing, you may get compromised. And this is where it gets really interesting. Ads can get posted on Drudge, Facebook, movie sites, porn, CNN, all of these different websites. It could get posted, but the problem for the attackers is once that malware hits, it doesn't go back to the ad. It goes back to another IP address or another website. So while you may be allow listing some sites, the C2 server won't work properly. Okay, it won't work properly. And you want to make sure that you're doing that filtering, fully understanding that you may get that initial malware, but it won't be able to go out because the domain that it's trying to go to for command and control is down and running. OpenDNS, you can filter this similar types of things, right? And OpenDNS is free. It's now owned by Cisco, and it's part of the Cisco umbrella category, which I think actually makes it better, to be honest. But one of the things I'm really, yeah, House of Lords. So I've seen Parliament get pretty salty. Actually, they tend to insult each other in a much like more refined way, right? And I dig that. What was the one? Was it where it like turned into a brawl? Was it South Korea? There's some really cool brawls in different parliamentary systems around the world. We need that here in the US. Just kind of get things out. It just sometimes you need to fight and then sit down and have a Coke or a low sodium V8 on the steps of Parliament or Congress or whatever and talk it out. That's just the way things we do sometimes. All right. So this is cool. It's easy to do. You can implement it at home. It's just one of those quick things. Now, one of the things that there's kind of an odd story about this. I strongly encourage you to never, ever, ever like do internet security for like your kids' schools or like charitable organizations or things like that. You only get judged on your failure, and it always has that thing of like, if you touched it last, it's your responsibility forever. So my wife and I, we were traveling quite a bit, and we wanted to bring the kids with us. The public school system wasn't excited about that. They had like a certain number of days where if you missed that many days of school, then your kid couldn't graduate. So we pulled them out of public schools. We put them into a private school, and they were fine with it because we were able to do the homework. We were doing homeschooling. It was awesome. And I remember this particular school, they were like, John, could you help us secure the network to protect the kids, to protect the children? And I'm like, you know what? I can. I can. So we went through, we installed ad blockers on all of the different computers the kids would be using. And then we put in OpenDNS on the school's router, and we were blocking all of these different sites, alcohol, drugs, gambling. I think this particular screenshot came from this, right? So I went through, this is just my initial screenshot of it. And I'm like, okay, we got it locked down. About a month or two later, the principal, like, he called me up and he's like, so I got a question. So I noticed that you put in, like, some filters, and I'm having trouble getting to sites. And I was wondering if you could fix that for me. And I'm like, what types of sites? Like, could you tell me? He's like, just sites. I'm trying to do work, and there's some sites that I can't get to. Is there some sites that you could, like, just kind of, could we fix it? And I'm like, you're gonna have to clarify, buddy, because I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And I think it was one of those things where it's like, if you could allow some sites, and I wasn't having any of it. And we left for a long time. I came back, and they had replaced the router at the school because the one that I had OpenDNS on it, and he had replaced it completely. And I was like, okay, yeah, we're done with this crap. But no, the other thing you run into, I remember, when I was actually helping with the public schools before we started doing this, and went and did the same thing. And I think it was a year and a half later, they got compromised, and they ended up calling me. They're like, "You did something, and our computers are compromised." I'm like, "My kids haven't gone to school there in a year and a half. Like that has nothing to do with me at this point." So it's always good to just play dumb whenever you're talking about this stuff because it gets rough as well. Other things that we need to be aware of in our environment is DNS over HTTPS, right? One of the most powerful tools we have is DNS for seeing what websites and domains and people are going to. That's great. But the problem is it's sent clear text. So while that's awesome for visibility, it's kind of rough for some countries where if you go to some certain websites, excuse me, where you go to some certain websites and you could end up getting hung at like soccer goalposts, right? I totally get that, right? We need to have some level of privacy for people to be able to do that. The biggest problem I have with DNS over HTTPS, though, is a lot of the companies that are pushing this as an initiative, they put their heart and soul. We're trying to protect privacy on the internet. Really, what they're trying to do is get that sweet, sweet DNS traffic so they can do ad injections and all kinds of weird things. They're kind of skeevy. So you got to watch out for this in your environment. And I would recommend this is a strange thing, but on corporate and organizational assets, you want to make sure that you're blocking DNS over HTTPS and you're killing it with fire because it's going to remove your visibility into what's going on in the environment as well. All right, so let's keep going. All right, so that's it. Internet allow listing. I got to figure out how to get a lab for that one going, but we're going to be moving into vulnerability management as well, getting into some of our last sections for today. We got some really cool vulnerability management labs, looking at things in kind of a different way. We have a vulnerability management lab where we're going to be talking about Ping Castle, which is super cool. And then we're going to be doing another one for web application security assessments as well. So in many ways, vulnerability management is kind of the exact same thing as it was over 10 years ago. Vendors in many scenarios just haven't, yeah, we want to block DNS over HTTPS. That is absolutely true. Yeah, we'll be talking, we have a lab with Zap. We'll be doing that as well. All right. Actually, no, do we want to talk about, let's do a lab. I got a lab, just a lab that's just sitting around. Do you guys want to do a lab? Let's do a lab. I think we should do a labs. All right. So I've got a lab. We're going to talk about good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods. And I don't know why I didn't think about this sooner. We should do this lab. So this is a lab. We're going to talk about ASNs. Where is it? Uh, let's do, I know I have it here. I'm passing it over and over and over again. Oh, come on. There it is, understanding ASNs. All right, so this is the lab that we're going to do. Let me put it into Discord. Just blind today, chat. I don't know what's going on. So the goal of this lab is to kind of show you how you can look at the internet, not necessarily by domains, but look at it from ASNs. Now, just so you know, ASNs are like zip codes for the internet. So you have a whole bunch of IP addresses on the internet, 4.72 billion and change for IPv4. And all of those are broken up into zip codes of responsibility, right? So like Microsoft has a whole bunch of ASNs, Google has a whole bunch of ASNs and so on. So we can look at how this is all broken up into good neighborhoods, bad neighborhoods, and trying to identify where these different neighborhoods are. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull down a list of known bad IP addresses on the internet, right? We're going to pull that down from this IPSUM that is master list of known bad IP addresses. Then we're going to send it to Kimry, and I'm going to do this really quick. I'm going to get my system started up, and I'm going to do it while you are doing the lab, because this takes a little while. Kimry has a service that we can use where we can do a lookup for each one of the IP addresses, and we can pull ZAP stands for Z Attack Proxy. Believe it or not, it is, God, what is the Pharaohs. There was a web tool called Pharaohs or Paros Proxy a number of years ago. It got forked and became Z Attack Proxy by OWASP, and lately it's been picked up by Crash Override. So that's what it sounds to. All right, so now it's with Crash Override. So we're going to use Kimry, which is a Welsh company, and we're going to look up each one of those IP addresses. We're going to get the ASN names for those IP addresses, and then we're going to run this little script, which is going to do a count of the number of ASNs and how many bad hits are in those ASNs. We're going to show you the bad neighborhoods of the internet. This one takes a little while, not because it's hard, but because Kimry takes a while for it to process through. So let's just set it to the top of the hour. We'll give it like 25 minutes and you guys can hit a break and then I'll do a walkthrough. So 25 minutes on the clock and then we'll resume. Let's get rolling. All right, and we are back. All right, so let's go through this really quickly. As I said, it's a pretty fast lab. It just takes a long time in that middle part where we're trying to pull down what the ASN numbers are from Kimry because it sends them each one at a time. Now, the reason once again that we're doing this is we're trying to show you kind of when you're looking at the internet what the good neighborhoods and bad neighborhoods look like. And really, for me, the most telling thing is how quickly the numbers drop off. So let me show you. So if I do this to just sort the number of bad hits in this particular data set, let me go ahead and change my settings so it's a little bit easier for you all to see. One of the things you'll notice is just how fast it drops off. You have like certain ASNs like DigitalOcean is just a wash in all kinds of sites that are known to host malware. And that actually kind of makes sense. Believe it or not, it really, really does. So if we look at this, we have DigitalOcean by itself has 25,454 deny list entries in this output. Now, what is DigitalOcean? DigitalOcean allows you to stand up your own sites and your own servers and host them as a VPC. So you can just basically stand up an Ubuntu system and do things with your Ubuntu system, and then quietly ignore and forget about your Ubuntu system. So there is a lot of systems that are compromised within DigitalOcean because people can just stand them up very, very quickly and then just forget about them. So we see that again and again and again showing up. Then we have, what is it? We have China and China showing up. We have SEC firewalls. I don't know what that is. That's interesting. That's a big jump, by the way. Then Microsoft and Google Cloud, very similar to DigitalOcean, where people can stand vulnerable systems up in their environments and then they get compromised as well. Alibaba is China, same thing. And then Amazon. So the thing that blows my mind though is we go from 29 or 25,000, and if I just hit spacebar a couple of times, we're dropping down to like less than 200. It drops off very precipitously. Now there's roughly 65,000 and that has nothing to do with 65,536, but there's roughly 65,000 ASNs. And I'm displaying 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. All right, so let me rerun this real quick. So if I'm doing roughly 20 hits per set, if I hit spacebar, I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So now we're at about 400 systems or 400 ASNs, 20 and 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32. We're dropping off very quickly. So we're looking at like out of 65,000, maybe the bad neighborhoods are roughly around 1,000. So you're talking about like roughly 1/60th of the internet has bad hits. Now, if I keep going all the way down to 1 and below 1, one of the things that you're going to see is a lot of different sites that have very few, if any, bad IP address hits in them as well. And what's interesting is you start looking at like updates.microsoft.com, you start seeing things like telco backbones. So a tremendous amount of the internet really isn't that evil, as a matter of fact. A lot of it's actually pretty boring, I guess, for lack of a better phrase, I suppose. So when we're looking at this really kind of helps bring it into stark contrast just how many of the bad things that we see on the internet are from a handful of different ASNs that are out there as well. All right, so let's move on to vulnerability management, and then we're going to get into yet another lab here. We got 2 more labs for today. So if we're looking at vulnerability management, a lot of vulnerability management is the same that it was basically 10 years ago, right? You run a vulnerability assessment scanner, and you take the results, and you try to address the criticals and the highs, and then you ignore the mediums and the lows and the informationals because who's got time for that crap? Ain't no one got time for that. And that's the way that the internet works. Clearly, it's not working right? Because if we look at the DigitalOcean thing, we have 25,000 bad IP addresses in DigitalOcean by itself. So clearly, standard vulnerability management seems to have some massive gaps with it. And sometimes you see a lot of these vulnerabilities show up in corporate environments that have like millions of systems. And I'll get to the millions thing here in just a couple of seconds. And in many ways, vulnerability management has had very little actual innovation associated with it at all. And that's kind of harsh because there's a lot of different vendors that would love to debate me on that. They're like, well, we're doing all of this stuff, this next gen garbage, blah, 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 blah. And I'm going to talk more about that here in just a couple of minutes. All right. Oops. There we go. There we go. So what has been happening in the industry as a whole for probably the better part of 10 years is there's been this real heavy focus on prioritization, right? And this gets back to a quote from Henry Ford, very quotable dude, also very well-known racist. But he had a quote that was great. And the quote was something to the effect of, if I would have produced what my customers wanted, I would have built a better horse. And I love that quote because the point of that quote is basically, if you're constantly listening to your customers and you're just trying to give them what they want, sometimes it's not going to be a space where you innovate very well at all, right? Like go and talk to a bunch of people. Henry Ford really wanted to develop tractors, right? Oh, thank you. Let me pause. I'll let it go for this. They didn't want better like tractors. They didn't even know what the hell a tractor was. They wanted a horse that was better at pulling a plow. And that was Henry Ford's main thing, not just cars, but building tractors. But building a tractor was an evolutionary jump. So that same thing happens with vulnerability vendors. They talk to their customers and they ask their customers, so what you want? And the customers are like, I want you to tell me out of these 100,000 vulnerabilities, which ones I should focus on fixing. So they start getting into this weird cycle where they tell customers, yeah, so what we're going to do is we're going to prioritize based on your market vertical. You're in finance, you're in accounting, you're in e-commerce, you're in healthcare. We're going to tell you, what are the attackers getting together and talking about exploiting in your environment? And we're going to have you prioritize on that. Absolute garbage, horrible way of actually looking at things. It just leads us down a very dark path. Because what happens in that scenario is people mistakenly believe that when attackers are choosing to exploit a specific market vertical, they're sticking within a specific exploit profile. It's like they say, no, Francois, we cannot use that exploit in this particular server. That exploit is only used by the Chinese and the Russians, right? Or Russians are like, Boris, we cannot use that. That's used by the French or the Israelis or whoever, right? That's not how it works. The attackers are going to go after any and all vulnerabilities that are presented to them. Now, they absolutely have their favorites, no question about that. But what happens when we start doing this type of vulnerability prioritization and thinking it like Minority Report, precog, these are the exploits they're going to go after, we're going to lose. And on behalf of offensive people pretty much everywhere, I thank anybody that tries to look at vulnerability prioritization this way because it just makes our lives completely easy to deal with. But it makes sense, right? Because just dealing with highs and criticals is very time consuming. Going all the way down to like informational and low vulnerabilities is pretty much insane, right? So why is it that BHIS spends so much time on the low and informational blind spots? Well, we really focus on low and informationals because that's where the good stuff is. It just is. And this is one of the reasons why I'm not all that worried about AI. If you look at AI and vulnerability management, a lot of the crap that they're trying to do is the same crap that core security technologies was doing years ago with Core Impact, where they could take a vulnerability scan, import that vulnerability scan, automatically do a lookup for what exploits were available, exploit those systems, and then try to pivot. That was happening way back in 2008, y'all. We can actually go back further and we can do Metasploit DB Autopwn, right? Where DB Autopwn Metasploit could take a Nessus file, it would look for all the vulnerabilities and then automatically try to exploit the systems with DB Autopwn. So AI is an evolution of that for sure, But a lot of the AI algorithms are completely focused on those highs and those criticals. They tend to ignore these types of blind spots. Why is this a blind spot? Well, imagine an environment has 1,000 telnet servers. Now, you may be thinking, why is anybody still running telnet? Good question. Let's go to Shodan. If I do Shodan and I do a lookup for telnet, like that, we have 240,000 telnet servers that are open on the planet, right? So clearly, people are still running telnet directly connected to the open internet. Now, the problem is trying to write a signature for telnet is somewhat difficult. It should just already be a medium, and for many of the scanners, it actually is, right? But if you look at the actual results, the banners that you get from telnet servers are all over the place. So if we go to telnet, we have username, NPC telnet, 1 byte connection, keep alive, goodbye, will echo, suppress, go ahead. We have all of this login authentication. It's very diverse in what is the data that it's giving you for that banner. So trying to write a consistent signature to be able to say that this telnet server is vulnerable is somewhat difficult. So we see telnet servers that'll be like this. We're testing an environment. Say we got 400 telnet servers, and we see login, 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 mushroom, mushroom, login, 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 router, router, login, 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 login. If you look at all of these, out of all these telnet servers, it's again saying that we've got like 1,000 of them. One of them says router greater than. Well, holy moly. That is a router that has no authentication. None. You just basically are logged right into a router. Now, if you type enable and it becomes a pound prompt, you have root level access to that router. This is the type of thing that a lot of vulnerability scans and a lot of penetration testers miss. They don't look at these low and informationals in such a way that they can identify these types of vulnerabilities. Vulnerability scans and port scans and service identification scans, they are nothing more than eyes and ears to inform you about potential issues that exist in the environment. So they get ignored. So with this ignoring of these vulnerabilities, I want you to imagine a snowball. But instead of a snowball, I want you to think of it as a great big poop ball, great big pile of poop. And every year we continue to ignore vulnerabilities, and that big pile of poop gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Keep ignoring mediums, keep ignoring lows, keep ignoring informationals. 1 year goes through, 2 years go through, 3 years go through, and the amount of these vulnerabilities starts going up. So the point I'm trying to get is you have to be looking at the mediums, lows, and informationals. But this gets us into a problem, right? How many organizations actually address low and informational issues? That number is coming up, thankfully, but it's incredibly low. I'm going to say the number of organizations that do this is too damn low. How do we get it up? I'm going to give you the wrong way. Strong as I can, I am only a man. This is the wrong way, right? So many organizations, they break up their vulnerabilities by IP address, by network range, and that kind of makes sense, right? It does from a human perspective. I have 1,000 IP addresses. I'm going to run a scan. The report kicks it out by IP address, and I take it, each one of these systems as an individual system, looking at the vulnerabilities of said individual system one at a time. Or we do it by network group. We say this system's administrator is responsible for these systems. This one's responsible for these systems. And it becomes, by approaching it this way, an insurmountable problem. All right. So they do this and they focus it and sorting by IP address. So let's say we have 1,000 IP addresses. And let's say, hypothetically, roughly, there's about, on average, 25 vulnerabilities per IP address. Now we have 25,000 issues that need to be addressed. This can be daunting. And this is actually what leads a lot of vulnerability analysis people to start breaking down and crying because of this massive amount of work that has to be done. So I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was working with a construction company that was doing some stuff on my barn. My barn is where I do my training for Wild West Hacking Fest. And I like it. It's a barn, but people showed up and they're like, this barn smells like a barnyard. I'm like, that's because I have cows, pigs, and chickens. It's literally a farm. And the contractor, the main lead contractor, the guy that was in charge of everything, who owned the company, didn't show up for work one day. And one of his employees, only one guy showed up, and he had to move 2x6s from one side of the yard where they got dropped off to the other side where we were going to be doing some work with the 2x6s and some framing the next day. And I'm kind of working upstairs and they're, just kind of watching over the construction. And I look out and he's dragging each 2x6 one at a time. And it's a full pallet, probably like over 100 of these 2x6s. And he was dragging them across the yard one at a time, just one at a time. Okay. I went and got my skid steer. I put the forklift attachment, forklifted it, put it all the way over and dropped it in one shot. And he got mad at me and said, "What the hell am I supposed to do all day today?" If you're doing vulnerability management and you're looking at by IP address, you're doing that same thing. You're taking each 2x6 one at a time and dragging it across the yard when instead you can take care of all of them in one shot. How do you actually do that? You need to focus on grouping issues by vulnerability or plugin ID, not by IP address. So stop focusing on the IP address. You focus on those vulnerabilities. So instead of 25,000 unique vulnerabilities, you probably have a couple hundred that are repeating on multiple different computer systems. We can use automation and we can address them as groups of issues rather than trying to go through and deal with each one. We can use Puppet, Chef, Ansible, CCM. We can use group policy. We can do any of these different techniques to try to address these vulnerabilities in mass. So if we have TLS vulnerabilities, SSL vulnerabilities, why are we trying to fix it bespoke, 2x6 at a time? We can literally forklift and address all of them in one shot. It's very much kind of an open source technique. And I work with a group called ASNs, kind of like the Avengers in computer security. And what we've done at Black Hills Information Security, we've had a couple of different pen tests where we are scanning 1 million live IP addresses. 1 million live IP addresses, right? So we are able to do this with 2 testers, and we can go through all IP addresses, all vulnerabilities in less than 3 weeks. Because we break it up by plugin ID or vulnerability ID. We use forklifts. And when we did this for the customer, they were shocked because we found a lot of critical issues that were missed. In the past, they had worked with other pen testing firms that were doing the single 2x6 methodology, and they would bring in multiple testers, like 5 for a period of 3 months, and charge a ridiculous amount of money, and they didn't even dent the vulnerability surface of that organization. This works. This is the way we need to be addressing vulnerabilities, not one at a time, but looking at the plugin IDs and grouping them that way. Also, I want to call out just kind of a quick note, kind of hearkening back to the adversarial emulation. Really, if you're looking at your attack surface, this is only 2 boxes in the MITRE ATT&CK technique matrix. Exploiting public-facing applications and an external remote service. That's it. All the rest of this stuff, all of that needs to be done with adversarial simulation and web application security testing. So let's go ahead and we're going to do a quick lab and we're going to move into Ping Castle. This one's a little bit of a challenge. So I'm going to go back to my lab directory. Now this one you don't need the VM for. I'm going to go to Ping Castle right here. And what I want you to do is I want you to look at this report from Ping Castle. And this is important because if we go back to the MITRE ATT&CK technique matrix, we have a lot of stuff here, a lot of vulnerabilities that can exist, and a ton of the vulnerability scanners, they're not going to detect these types of vulnerabilities. But we can use something like Ping Castle. Oh no, I wonder if they changed my report on me. Maybe it's the same. I don't know. We'll see. But Ping Castle is a vulnerability analysis tool that allows you to do a quick check of your domain. It's kind of like a vulnerability scanner for your Active Directory. All right. So you can go through Ping Castle, and I want you to answer these questions. So Let me see. Okay, we do. Okay, it looks like we still have these. So, do we have any systems with empty passwords? Any accounts with passwords that never expire? Do we have, what does everyone and anyone mean in Active Directory? What does anyone privileges? Are there any old passwords? So, it looks like this is still the same report. They just put it through the new engine, so it looks different. But this is great because this allows you to start looking at your vulnerabilities in a different way than what a vulnerability scan would actually generate. So let's go ahead. Let's get to it. If you need any assistance, please let us know. I'm hoping most of these are answerable. I do have the answers, but if you look down below, a lot of this will look different. There we go. Never expiring passwords. We do have those. All right. So it looks like a lot of the stuff is still there. It's just a different UI. I need to update screenshots, but let's go ahead and let's get to it. Let's put 30 minutes on the clock, y'all. And then we'll get started and then we'll move on to web and then we'll close out with a web app pen testing lab. So get rolling. I'll see you on the other side. All right, so let's go through this. So if we look at this report, we can look up empty and PTY passwords. Right up, we have objects that have an empty password, and we have a couple of different accounts that we have empty passwords associated with them for the server account, right? And or we can also do blank as well, but empty passwords. So once again, that's not something that would show up in a vulnerability scan. Let's do never expire. Like we have number of accounts with never expiring passwords. We have 47 of them. That's absolutely insane. Like we got test user accounts, like, but also, like I said, whenever we get access to environments for an internal, this is just like par for the course, right? Like we expect to see a lot of service accounts in here, but whenever we have individual user accounts, that becomes a big problem. Let's go ahead and do everyone. So right here, we have the everyone group. So whenever you're looking at the everyone group, this means even unauthenticated users. So if you go into Google and you do a search for like the everyone and the everyone group, that means like anyone. Now you should be doing authenticated users. And this is one of those things for Active Directory that a lot of people don't understand. If you look at your company, you're like, we should have everyone have access to this, and you do everyone, that means literally anyone that can touch that system, no authentication. That is different than authenticated users. And I think that's literally the next question on that as well. We also have old passwords, stale. Maybe they don't have that one anymore. No, I don't know if they have any passwords. We got never expiring passwords. Let's see what else they got in here. Can't see that. Maybe they got rid of that one. I think they probably just rolled it into the never expiring passwords on it as well. But once again, the whole goal of this particular lab is just to show you, hey, we can totally do vulnerability analysis and something that's outside of a tool like Nessus and what it does as well. All right, so I'm going to make sure my VM is up and running. That's looking good. I'm actually going to open up Zap Attack Proxy because it takes a while for Zap to start. If you want to click on Zap inside of your VM, that would be a good idea, just to get you some time because it does take a few minutes for it to spool up. All right, so let's go through and let's talk about like a different type of vulnerabilities, right? We have that Nessus report that we can look at, of course. That's the easy stuff, but that's not the stuff that's getting us in a lot of times, right? These Active Directory issues with a tool like Ping Castle are really the ones that we're looking on that we need to try to jump into as well. But what about web apps? Right. And this gets into the coming SaaS apocalypse. And one of the things that I'm kind of concerned, but I'm excited about. And the reason why I'm kind of concerned and I'm kind of excited about it is because the game is about to change dramatically, because literally anyone can create a full web server and a full SaaS service that they can use using Anthropic. So that means that the number of web apps and different SaaS applications that we're going to be creating is going to start exploding. And that's going to be requiring us to being able to do vulnerability analysis on a wider set of web applications. So let me set the stage and kind of like get this example to you so you can kind of visualize it. Let's say Anthropic does a fantastic job of creating code for a web server. I can have it create a web server, let's say hypothetically, completely in the land of make-believe, where nothing is as it seems and everyone throws ducks at balloons. Let's say that we create a web server that has zero vulnerabilities in it. None. It's so good. It's so good that Bruce Schneier wept. Okay. It's that great. Okay. Now, let's move that server. And the guy that created the server, the gal that created that server, they had no idea what the hell they were doing. They had Anthropic create that server and that service or whatever it was for them because they're trying to save money, and it's perfect. Now that server ages 6 months, or let's say that server ages a year, right? The vast majority of organizations aren't going to be using Anthropic's code analysis tools to constantly update that code. but they'll just let that server run because if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Do you think there's going to be vulnerabilities that show up in that web server 6, 7 months from now? Absolutely, there is. So, how do we do that continuous testing, even if we're starting with a good platform and base of the vulnerabilities that we have? How can we secure our environments? Because training is expensive. Like, I mean, you're talking about a lot of organizations out there are still trying to charge like $9,000 for a 6-day training class. That's insane, right? That's a bit excessive, especially when there's a lot of good training that's out there. So, how do we do that quick triage training to get it to work? And we're talking about software development life cycles. Even when we're talking about AI, we're looking at continuous builds, we're looking at continuous improvements, and security is often bolted on at the very end. That's something that is not changing. Right? We're seeing Anthropic go through legacy code bases, and the developers throw their hands up and they're like, we can't fix all of this. This is literally hundreds of critical vulnerabilities. Or you're using something like Aardvark from OpenAI. It's like, this is hundreds of vulnerabilities. How do we even begin? It's very, very difficult, right? So there's a lot of legacy technology. There's a lot of new technology that's kind of slop code. And then there's some new code that's coming out that's actually pretty solid. But we continue to see a truism in computer security is that security is often bolted on at the end. It's also very dangerous, right? We should be doing this throughout the life cycle of the applications. We also have people saying security is hard. Most of it's not. Okay, I want to make it clear. Most security testers know less about development than you do. They just do, right? It's a different skill set. It's easier to teach a web developer security than it is to teach a tester development, even though that is now changing with AI. There's lots of free tools, and we're getting into the Pareto principle back to the 80-20 rule. So, what should we be testing and how should we be testing? And many of the tools we're going to talk about are so easy, they should be used on the build cycle continuously, nightly if possible, weekly at a minimum. We also recommend a different member of the team runs these tools so the exposure to security issues is diverse and spread across the entire organization. And believe it or not, it's actually going to make you a better developer to identify and start working through these issues. So, what do we test for? We're looking for things that can be easily detected with an automated tool. These things are stimulus and response. They're not full business logic errors. And even AI has tremendous issues with business logic errors. It just does. So we're looking at cross-site scripting, SQL injection, command injection, misconfigurations, and this is roughly 80 to 85% of the attack surface that you see being actively exploited in the wild. Do these tools cover everything? No, of course not. They just don't. They do a great job, but they miss these logic errors. And a lot of AI tools miss business logic errors as well. They miss permission errors, like jumping from one page to another page. They miss things like that, right? Stored cross-site scripting, cross-site request forgery. A lot of these require manual testing. Let me give you an example. We were testing a web app a number of years ago, and it was for a fantasy football website. Okay. So people would come onto this website and they would convert their dollars, their money, into fantasy football bucks. I'm giving you the name. I don't remember what the hell they were called, but whatever. So we got fantasy football bucks, right? So I would go in and I want to take $100 and I want to convert it to 100 fantasy football bucks. What happened with the app is in your browser, you would make a request to the server to buy 100 fantasy football bucks. It would send your browser a request to go redirect to the server that would take your money. And then you would process your money. It would come back to your browser, and then it would forward that back to the fantasy football website, how many football bucks you bought. The problem is that all went through the browser. That meant an attacker could sit on that browser, and when the request or the response came back from who's taking your money saying he bought 100 football bucks, you could modify it to be 1,000,000 football bucks and send it back to the server. That's a business logic error. Okay. That's the type of errors that we are talking about, that really a human needs to look at how this stuff goes and processes that AI would tend to miss. In fact, AI does a lot of things with those types of errors because context matters to AI. And a lot of times when we say fix security, it fixes this because all the security books that are out there are talking about these issues. All of the vulnerabilities that hit the internet are these types of issues. So this is the context whenever you ask it to fix web app vulnerabilities that it focuses on, because the weight of the universe is heavily focused on these things. So humans are still needed for some testing. We absolutely need to be part of that. We can also do this and we can run these tools before we ever get to an individual test. At least when we're looking at it, my testers don't want to document thousands of cross-site scripting vulnerabilities. We're tired of that. We want to focus on the business logic errors that we're dealing with on that as well. So we run these tools, we share the results with the tester before they even get there, and it speeds up the test. That's great. It makes you get more bang for your buck when you get security assessments from a company. Now, there's a number of tools that are available. We have like Burp Suite Pro. It's not free, but it's cheap and it's awesome. W3AF is an automatic web scanner. By the way, I'm going to go over here and go ahead and do this. Sorry, takes a while to get Zap up and running. There we go. They're done. Click OK. Let's close it. There we go. Can start this, and then it's going to do a little update screen and jump back to it. So we're going to be focusing on Z attack proxy, which is an iteration of Paros proxy, and it's now ran by Crash Override. It actually still is maintained by a lot of people at OWASP, but these tools, if you know how to use them, are better than a lot of the tools that cost $20,000 or more. Now, if you want to go commercial, we strongly encourage you to look at Burp Suite Pro. I don't know what it costs. I think it's like around $500 for a Burp Suite Pro license. But it is like, without a doubt, the most heavily used web app pen testing tool for any web app pen testers that are out there. It has a GUI. It's just not a cool GUI. Some of them have like really cool dark mode and all this stuff. It has a GUI, but it's not cool. Just want to make that clear. It's very, very basic level GUI. They did add in a place where you could put in a URL to do it scan, but it really does matter like how you actually use it. You have to set it up as a proxy, and then you choose where you want to scan, and you can just Google how to get your browser to use it as a proxy. And when it runs in intercept mode where each of the requests are intercepted and you can modify them on the fly. So you can see everything that's going back and forth between your browser. Another important thing is setting scope. We don't want to crawl and attack different websites that are outside of the scope that we are testing. Then it crawls and spiders the host, and it comes back and maps the host. You can also have it actively scan that host, which is all the stuff we can do in Z attack proxy as well. So let me do this. I don't want to do an update. That should be good. It can actively scan the host and come back with the vulnerabilities. Now, whenever it comes back with those vulnerabilities, it'll show you like whether or not it thinks that there's criticals, mediums, or highs based on the findings. Now, spider the host means crawling. Think of like a website that has lots and lots and lots of links and pages. Spidering the host means that it's going all nimbly bimbly, like a monkey going from tree to tree, or a cat going from tree to tree, meow. So it's going to spider that host. All right. And then you get the results back and you can start fixing issues. Pretty cool. But we're going to be focusing on Zap. It's free originally from OWASP, currently ran by Crash Override. It's very similar to Burp in its setup. It's free. Has a very strong development core. It's free. Has the ability to intercept and modify requests. It's free. Has the ability to do full automated scanning. And did we mention that it costs nothing? And it's available to download from Crash Override. Now, all of this goes back to we want to start getting caught, right? We want to start getting caught and not just scan for vulnerabilities, but we want organizations to understand what they were able to detect and what they weren't able to detect. This is an example of a spreadsheet that we give our customers, kind of giving them their overall detection mapping in their environment. And we need to be moving away from can we be hacked to what we can actually detect. And MITRE, when we're looking at all of this, when we're talking about OWASP and all these things, we have frameworks now. And by the way, okay, the Grimace thing, this is one of my favorite things. Thank you very much, Brian. This is one of my favorite memes on the internet. It's a heartwarming moment where a boy goes up and starts to hug a Muppet, but it looks like the Muppet's eating his head. All right. All right, so now we have the last lab of the day is Z attack proxy. This lab is going to take us about 20 minutes, 30 minutes when we add 10 minutes on, so 30 minutes total, so we can do a break. So I'm going to go back to the lab list. We're going to go down here, and we are going to do I have so many labs. This is going to be so much easier when I get to using this in backdoors and breaches. We're going to do web testing, and we are going to use a tool called the Damn Small Vulnerable Web App. So you're going to go through, you're going to start up the Damn Small Vulnerable Web App, and then you're going to actively scan, and you're going to look for the vulnerabilities and see how that comes through in the Z attack proxy. Once again, a lot of this stuff, y'all, if you're doing this, it's easy. And these vulnerabilities that it discovers will take off a lot of the low-hanging fruit that your standard like Skidiot or hacker is going to be looking for. All right, so let's get rolling. I'll see you on the other side of this lab. Kick it off, sir. right. Let's do this, lab. All right, throw that over there. There you are. Thank you, Zoom. I know. All right. So here we go. We're going to open up a Kali terminal now. I kind of have my Zap session up and running. Get that font up so we can see what's going on. Sometimes I wonder if I change the font for you guys, if I change it for me. All right, so we're going to become root because we're going to starting up a little bitty web server, Python. We're going to cd into opt web testing, like so. Then we are going to get our IP address. Now we're going to need this IP address because we have to put it in with the Z attack proxy here in just a couple of seconds. So then we're going to start up the little web server, and it is an incredibly small web server. But one of the cool things about this web server is it actually articulates a large number of different vulnerabilities that you would encounter that can actually be discovered fairly easily through a web app scanner tool. So that works pretty good for kind of getting those basic things out of the way. I'm going to kind of set this a little bit so it's easier to see. So we're going to do an automated scanner. I'm going to put in the IP address of 10.10.105.152, and then we're going to put in a colon 65412. And then we're going to click the attack on that. And it should throw a quick error here in just a second. All right. So now it's going through and it's crawling the website. And then it's going to start doing the actual attack. There we go. Now it's going to continue. There it is. Now it's actually starting the attack. You can see it over here. And then on the left-hand side, we can see the alerts as they're being generated, right? And it takes a little while for it to actually complete out, and you'll see it fill in as the scan actually completes. Oh, wait, let me get Discord up and running. I can't see you guys. I'm all alone. Where is it? Let's go. Discord. There's my Discord. That's better. There's all this conversation about time zones. There we go. All right. So there we go. Now we've got a couple of different errors that have popped up. And I love kind of walking through like how these errors work with Z attack proxy. It's just really super cool, number one. So let's go ahead and let's look at SQL injection. Now, whenever you select one of these, I want you to see what happens up here with the request and the response. So as I go through each of these, you can see that the request and the response changes, right? And what it's highlighting is it's trying to highlight for you what it considers to be the indicator that there is a SQL injection attack. So if I look at the request, you're going to see this like SQL injection style attack showing up again and again and again in the requests. But then if we look at the responses, it highlights what in the response makes it think that there is a SQL injection attack. And when we get a response back and we get something like SQLite 3 operational error, yeah, that's a pretty good indication that we have a SQLite database running right here. So that's pretty neat working with it. So remote file inclusion, got that one. I've got Zoom stuff in the way that you guys can't see. Let me see if I have any other vulnerabilities that are fun to look at. Cross-site scripting redirect, right? So we can look at those, and we have various cross-site scripting, and you can see that it thinks that it has cross-site scripting because it's reflecting back this script alert close script. Once again, that's a pretty good indication that you're dealing with a cross-site scripting attack whenever you send a script and it reflects it back to the user. Remote file include, we can actually put in a reference to a remote file in a request, and it means it can load up in a browser. Some buffer overflow stuff. That was kind of crazy, right? Like what are we showing there, right? It's a lot of gibberish. Looks like base 64 data. Yeah, we're getting OS errors right here. So you can see OS error, file name too long. So we know that things were getting sent down to the operating system. I don't know if it's necessarily a buffer overflow. It might be more of command injection vulnerabilities. but at least gives us that stimulus and response. Now, if I go to the SQL injection here, it also gives you some references and some explanations insofar as what that vulnerability is, what the solution is, and then some helpful URLs to be able to hunt that down as well. So that is the last lab. All right. So do we have any bingo winners, Megan? I think it's time to start wrapping things up today.
Already? Okay. Yes, we do.
It is. Goes so fast.
I have a winner.
We do?
If you're ready for it.
Wait. What do they get, Megan?
They get 1 year. Oh gosh, I'm really short. Hold on. Let me go.
She's not that short in person, I swear.
I am that short person. So they get 1 year access to our on-demand catalog, as well as 1 year access to CyberRange. Sorry, got all kerfluffled there.
Now,
ready? Are we
let's say
ready?
let's do it. Let's do it. I'm ready. Must be
Okay.
present to win.
Must be present to win. Ready? It's Fitzer 02143.
Ooh.
Are you here?
213, are you here?
Yay! No, that was you.
There he is.
Hey, there.
Said howdy.
Howdy. Okay, congratulations, you won. So I'll be sending you some information, getting some information from you via direct message. And yeah, so
But let's say hypothetically someone wanted to buy access, which is an insane deal, to our entire course catalog. Do we still have that link?
Yeah, we do. Let me find it. It is $1,500.
$1,500. Are we trying to lose money?
Yeah, I think so.
Isn't that like 95% off list price?
Every class we up it. I think it's 95.5% off.
95.5% off. So like the best training deal in the world. So go check that.
Yeah.
So we'll do that. All right.
And Jessie's not here. She usually has my link for me. So let me find it.
All right. So closing ceremonies, we're getting better at doing this now. And it's kind of hard because part of me, as I'm getting more numb to it, I feel bad because it's kind of some heavy shit that we cover here in the end. And if we seem kind of flippant, and just understand that we've done this now multiple dozens of times, Megan, it's been a lot. But I want to kind of talk about the origins of this class and why this class is important, I think, for the broader security community as a whole. The first thing that we want to call out is that a number of you paid to be here, right? And I would like to get a round of applause for everyone that, for a pay what you can class, chose to pay to attend this course. So I want to say thank you to every single one of you for doing that, because you actually do make this possible for us to do, because it does cost money for us to do these things. And we are greatly appreciative of that. Now, the other group of people that we have in this class are the people that did not pay. Now, if I was a skeevy pastor, on television at 5 o'clock in the morning, I'd be like, no, you can still pay. I'm not going to do that. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to offer this. When we started this class, all the way back in COVID, there was a lot of conversations about what the goals and objectives of this class were. And when we were in COVID, there was a bunch of people, it was uncertain. People were losing their jobs. We didn't know where the industry was going. It seems a lot like right now, actually, which is scary. But it was a scary time, right? We also recognize that there was a lot of different groups that are underrepresented in computer security. And when we started having those conversations about women in security, African Americans in security, Native Americans, we started down the path that a lot of companies go when we were talking about we should do scholarships. And I want you guys to stick with me. It's going to get a little weird. Just hold on. I hate scholarships. I don't like them. I understand that companies that do scholarships, their heart's absolutely in the right place. They're trying to do the right thing. And I fully recognize that the people that receive scholarships, it can fundamentally change their life in a way that wouldn't be possible without that. Set that aside. The reason why I hate scholarships is because they don't fundamentally change the game. They don't fundamentally change the system as a whole, right? And whenever we look at any of the different groups based on race, religion, ethnicity, sexual orientation, the biggest reason why people don't get into computer security and to a lot of different fields is money. Right? I'm from a part of the world that has some of the highest poverty rates in the United States, in South Dakota. We have reservations. We have a lot of people that are below the poverty rates. And so a lot of those people look like me, right? We have people all over the country from a number of different places that maybe just didn't get the opportunities that they needed to be able to succeed and come into this field. And one of the things that kind of woke me up the beginning of this last school year is we know this lady that was trying to get into college. And I always thought, well, you can go to college, get student loans, you can do it. But because of her family's credit history, she could not get student loans. And that blew my mind, right? That kind of showed me even more that a lot of gates are closed for a lot of people to try to better their lives and move forward in an industry or a new career. There's all this crap about pull yourself up by your bootstraps. To be honest, have you ever tried to pull yourself up by your bootstraps? Hint.
You wear boots?
You can't, right? You
Dude,
can't do
are
it.
there even any boot straps on boots anymore?
Maybe on some, I don't know, possibly, right? But when we started looking at this, we wanted to fundamentally change the game. And we wanted to change the game not for this group or that group or these people. We wanted to fundamentally change the game across the board. And we had the idea of doing pay what you can training, and it went spectacularly well. And it's been something that has been very key to everything that Megan, Brian, myself, Daryl, and the rest of the team at Antisyphon have been solidly focused on how we can continue to change people's lives and get people into computer security and really get into this career field and do it the best they can. And right now, I think we have over 300 people that we know beyond a reasonable doubt, we have proof that have gotten into this industry because of the courses that we are releasing. And that is amazing. That is absolutely amazing. Which brings me to the people who didn't pay. There's a number of you that did not pay for this course. And I think we all need to say thank you to as well. So a round of applause for the people that didn't pay, because a lot of those people don't have the money to be able to join this class. Now you can say, well, $25. I grew up and I fundamentally remember $25 effing mattered. It absolutely matters. I grew up in a very blue collar family. I remember my family working hard, and I absolutely remember my mom and my dad busting their ass, and I would have to wait to get shoes because I would have holes in the shoes. The front would be splitting. I would have duct tape. And I know what it's like to go to school with that. And I know what it's like to be made fun of for that. And I know the pain that that actually brings to parents whenever they encounter that. I also understand for the people that chose to be in this class, that you chose to be here and you gave the only thing you could, and that was your time. And your entire life is completely dictated and is completely predicated on a time clock. It is completely dedicated to how many hours you spend at work, how many hours you spend commuting. And that is the thing that you have to give. And you took that time that you had, the most precious thing that you have, and instead of spending that time on improving yourself, resting, spending time with your family, spending time with your kids, spending time with your significant others, you chose to take that time that is so precious to you, and you chose to be here with us. And I think you all are owed a round of applause, because I do not believe that a lot of you are just like lazy, or you just buy a few lattes, or you do all of these different things. Because I remember just how hard my family worked, and a number of people that I've known over the years have worked. And so many of the people that are in that place are merely looking for an opportunity. They're looking for a door to open so they can walk through it. So instead of dealing with the gates, we wanted to burn the gates down, because fuck the gates. There's far too many of them that exist. There's far too many of them that are designed to hold people back, and we want to tear those down. So to that end, I want to make a request. If you paid, if you didn't pay, if you found value in this, one of the things that we would like to ask is help amplifying the signal. Whenever we're doing these classes, we make it available. We don't judge. We don't care. We just want people to come and hang out with us and do really cool things. We would like your help amplifying that. We do these classes roughly once a month. We're also incorporating free pay what you can, or free labs, free lab Fridays. We have a bunch of cool stuff coming up, and I would like your assistance, community, in your family circle, in your friend circle, that has the technical aptitude to come into this field. Maybe they're just looking for an opportunity, and that opportunity is huge. Some of the things that we have encountered in this class. I had a lady that was at Wild West Hacking Fest, Deadwood, that came up, and she got into this space. And it was just this last class, and it meant a lot to her to be here. We had someone in Way West Hacking Fest when we did it in Reno, Nevada, came up to me and said, I got a job in computer security because of your course. And I finally got health insurance. And shortly after I got health insurance, I found out that my child had cancer. And I was able to get the cancer care. Her kid was fine. It was fine. But she was able to get that health insurance to get the child the level of care that that child deserves, which I want to be honest with you is the level of care that every child in America and around the world deserves. And to be able to make that type of difference in people's lives so that they can achieve these goals is absolutely critical to everything we do, and it helps sustain us in what we're doing. So please help us amplify the signal. When you see an opportunity, you see this class, please help us retweet, help us repost, help get it out there. Also, Brian just put up a great link. Thank you, sir. We also have a community. We aren't just training, we're a community. Right now, there's 7,246 fantastic people that are online right now on Discord. These are people that can help you through challenges, that can help you through labs, they can help you through struggles in life, they can help you with computer security challenges when you get your job, and they're available to you. It's a community. We're trying to help each other out, and we do police it. We don't let a lot of toxicity come in. We try really hard to get that out. So with that,
we don't like to party with those people.
Check this out. Andy, who's been with us for a while, got a verbal offer for a security gig, 6 figures, 2.5 years in IT. Found Antisyphon about a year ago. 100% certain he wouldn't be there without you. So let's ring the bell
Yeah,
for Jason and them.
congrats,
Thank you.
Andy. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. So I appreciate all of you being here. I appreciate you being part of our tribe, and I can't wait to see you in the next class. Take care, everybody. Have a great one.
All right. Like John said, thanks everybody for joining us. We're glad that you spent your week with us and trusted us with your education. Your certificates of completion will be going out overnight via email tonight. So if you don't get it, you should be able to log into your account and find it. But I think that's about it. The people that paid the extra tiers and that had the extra stuff, we have to wait for registration to close, which it isn't closed yet. So if there are people that are on the stream and you would like to register for the class, you still have an opportunity. I think it stays open until 4 p.m. today. So you can do that to get a certificate. You don't have to pay if that's not what you want to do. That's fine. It doesn't matter. But the people that did pay, we will be reaching out to you. Roswell, don't make me laugh. We will be reaching out to you about all of the extra stuff that you get with your payment tiers. But I think with that, again, thanks everybody for joining us. We'll see you in the next one. And Daryl, I think it's time to kill it with fire. Have a good one, everybody. Thanks again.